Has anybody in here worked with an occupational therapist before? A couple. So do you all know what an occupational therapist is, first of all? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get you a job. It doesn't work that way. It's more like how do you adapt and work in the environment given your skill set? So regardless of where you're at in a disease process, in a life-changing process, in a development process, you can work with an occupational therapist to match your goals and your skills with what you want to be able to do. We come up with creative solutions to get you there, whether that's an exercise and an activity, whether that's changing the activity itself, whether it's modifying what you do in the context of the activity. That's what we do. We're big problem solvers. So we like those challenge and creative outcomes. So when I talk about low vision solutions, low vision meaning that you're not able to see all of the time, that's going to be different from one person to the next person. Visual fields are different all the time. So I cannot give one clear solution to a problem for everybody because that's not how it works. So I figured today will be more of a discussion problem solving opportunity. Sound good? So to get started, I just want you to take a moment and think, how has your independence been affected by your vision? So if you've experienced some visual changes, or if you have noticed somebody or been with somebody who has experienced visual changes, just take a moment and think, like, what changed in their independence? What were they not able to do? What did you have to do differently? How did you change your life because you could no longer see? Okay, so first a little bit of science here. And please correct me if I'm wrong in any part of this. But we're just going to go basic. We're not going to go the neurooptometrist level of vision. That's way too much. So this is obviously an eyeball, correct? So you have your cornea here, your pupil, and your iris is the nice colored part. The lens, and the information gets transferred back here to your retina and your fovea, and then it gets sent through your optic nerve back into the brain, right? So the image comes in through the pupil, the lens adjusts so that you can see it clearly, and the image gets flipped upside down on the back here, and then it gets sent beyond. So that's just what your eye has to do to get information to the brain. That's only such a small portion of the visual system, right? The next steps. So it comes from the eye, it has to travel down the optic nerve to this great guy, the lateral geniculate nucleus, where it then descends back into the visual cortex. Okay? So information has to come from the front of your head all the way to the back of your head. And it doesn't seem like a lot of space, but that's distance. This optic nerve is quite the distance for that information to travel, and the speed at which that information has to get there is pretty quick, right? So if there's a delay or if there's something wrong with the nerve back here and that information gets stalled out somewhere, you're going to be missing information that you can't process to act on quick enough. So information can be disrupted anywhere. You can have disruption at the eyeball itself, hence my glasses here, because my lens isn't accommodating like it should be, and my eyeball is actually stretched a little bit, so that distorts the image. You can have interruption along the optic nerve with a compression, with nerve dysfunction, with shearing. Anything can happen here where the information doesn't make it back to the eyeball. That's more of a, have you heard the term of a field cut? Somebody who's had a stroke and they can only see half of their vision. It's because something's happened along the optic nerve tract to get information back to the brain. Okay? And then you can have disruption back here in the visual cortex where they can't process the information correctly. So again, just another way to see how information comes in. So everything over in the blue over here actually is received on the opposite side. It goes to the left side of the brain and is processed. And everything in the red, which starts on the left, actually crosses and goes to the right side of the brain. Questions about that? Again, another complex step. We started off with a really simple eyeball. Then we went to the optic nerve that carried the information back. But now I'm telling you that what you see on the right actually gets processed on the left and vice versa.
Where's the eye in this?
The eyes are here, these circles.
Oh, gotcha.
And it goes back to the visual cortex. So it's like looking down on somebody's head.
That means that if someone has a problem seeing with the left eye, the problem is in the right side of the brain?
Depending on where it happens. So if you're having visual difficulties with your left visual field or your left eye, if you're noticing if some lesions or if some injury occurs in the optic nerve before this crossing point, before the optic chiasm, then it's definitely in the left eye. But if it occurs afterwards, then you're dealing with more information on the right side. So it's a big, it depends.
So if it was bothering the left eye, if the left eye was the issue, then how it's reds on the, are you just doing red and blue, or is it like that's how your eyes see color, left side sees more red?
It's just red and blue. It doesn't mean your right eye sees
It's just
blue.
your graphic.
Yes, the graphic.
So does optic neuritis tend to attack in generally one area, or is it potentially all along the optic nerve?
I don't know, that's a good question. Does somebody, yeah,
So,
please.
so optic neuritis specifically with NMO attacks the optic nerve, and if I can point out, it's usually this part of the eye, of the nerve, right here before it even crosses. So, but what's important, I think, about this image is that if you see that there's red coming from both eyes, so actually both eyes can see the left side of the world, right? If you cover up one eye, an eye that works, you can see all the way over here, right? So both eyes can see both sides of the world, but when you lose, so if you lose vision from one eye, you're not just losing like the left half of the world or the right half of the world, you're losing that visual field, which is about 120 degrees of what that eye can see.
So then to add more complexity to it, because once the image gets back to your occipital lobe and your visual cortex, your brain then has to work with it and decide, so what, right? I'm noticing something different. Now you need to either act on it. Well, you need to act on it, but you need to decide how you're going to do that. So then the information comes back to the back part of the brain here, your visual cortex and your occipital lobe, and then it goes two different directions. It goes up into your parietal lobe, where it kind of figures out the where, which is your spatial processing, meaning where are you in space related to everything else? Where is the coffee cup in relation to the bagel? Where am I in relation to the chair? That's the processing, right? And then down below is the what stream. So down below in your temporal lobe, it's deciding what's the color, what's the texture, what's the detail, what's the shape, what's the size. And all of this has to happen in nanoseconds. So the purpose of this slide is to show you that vision is really a whole brain activity. And then I'm always astounded by this fact down here, this last note, that your visual system is responsible for 80 to 85% of your perception, learning, and cognition and activity in the day. So roughly translated, 80 to 85% of what you do during the day is connected to your visual system in some form. That's a lot. That's a lot. Which is why if you lose it or lose parts of it or things get blurry or you can't process what you're seeing, it really impacts what you do during the day. How has vision loss impacted you? What was one? Yeah.
I don't drive anymore.
Driving.
That's the biggest thing right there. Losing that ability to drive has been really difficult to give up.
Yeah. And being an OT, we can talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
How else?
For me also, it's been my, like, I've lost my, I want to say nerve or like.
Confidence. Loss of confidence in
doing
things
and anything
by yourself.
Have you experienced falls or trips?
I haven't experienced falls or trips or anything like that, luckily. But I just don't feel like I can do as much as I thought I could before I lost my vision, yeah.
So you're also feeling that it holds you back from even trying something?
Yeah.
Difficulty reading.
A lot of patients tell me computer work is very challenging.
Yep. Work?
I also have a harder time figuring things out. Almost like trying to figure out like how does this go or what is this for? It's almost like it takes me a while to process my information of what I'm seeing. So I have a hard time processing things just by what I see.
So like the purpose of an item or even the name or where might this go? Like I know it's the loaf of bread, but where should I be putting it right now?
Yeah, just processing different things.
And I think to expand on that a little bit is it can sometimes mess with your comprehension.
Yes.
It becomes very difficult to comprehend something when you're really struggling to see it.
And when you say struggling to see it, does that also mean that it's blurry, fuzzy, or are you seeing it clearly?
Speaking only for myself is I'm super heat sensitive. So any amount of heat and I start to get the white spots in my vision and everything darkens. So it's frustrating and then it starts to stress you out a little bit and then just to try to formulate a clear thought in your head. And you wouldn't think your vision is connected to that, but apparently it is.
Yes. Yes, it is. So your vision gets disrupted initially by white, floaty, type things coming in. And then is there a sense of restriction? Your field gets smaller after that?
Yes, it gets smaller and, if I'm hot, just even if I knew you very well, from here to here, I can't tell who you are.
So it's not an acuity where it's necessarily blurry, right? It's just a loss, a change in what your visual field is telling you. Great, thank you. Anybody else want to share their visual changes? Or?
Mine's almost kind of the same way. Is that I get like a cloudy, shadowy is how I look. I picture as trying to look through a foggy mirror.
Foggy mirror.
And my peripheral is my worst part in my eye, and so look into a foggy mirror. That's how I do it.
It's easy to scare though.
Yes,
People just pop up out of nowhere, right? Like, I know you're there.
What's the other side?
One of the best descriptions I ever heard was it's like looking through a snow globe.
Oh, that's great. And also like maybe a snow globe sometimes with paper towel tubes up around, right? Because you lose that peripheral.
Yeah, I get a lot. I just went through having just tunnel vision is what I had gone through with just pretty much. Because my acuity is pretty good, it's just the peripheral is pretty bad.
Yep. And that's what we're talking about. This isn't an acuity thing. A pair of glasses isn't going to change how you see the world, right? Unless, of course, you need them because the lens is different, but that's not always the case. Great. Any other thoughts?
One more thing I was going to add. So some people tell me also when you've lost vision in one eye, it can affect your depth perception.
That was my next thing, the depth perception.
So I think that can be a challenge too. For a lot of people. And then the other thing is sometimes people after optic neuritis can be extremely light sensitive too, and just feel more comfortable wearing sunglasses all the time. Some people might feel like that's weird. I would feel more comfortable wearing sunglasses right now.
The patients that I see often come in with light sensitivity and feel really comfortable with some really dark glasses and hacked. Trying to pull out of that is tricky. Let's talk briefly about just general safety in the home. So anytime you have visual changes, it is a great idea to think about organization. And I don't know if anybody else is out there is like me right now, but home organization is the thing. with labels and organizing by color and clearing out clutter. Like, it is the time to do it now. I will gladly come to your house and throw out all of your stuff if you'll let me. There's nothing that makes me happier. So you want to remove the clutter. If you can't already, figure out, if you're not seeing clearly and it's one crisp item on a white tabletop and it's distinguished, how are you going to open up that junk drawer? We all have the junk drawer where things just land. How are you going to open up and find that one item is in there when you're trying to dig through rubber bands and scissors and ticket stubs and cards and batteries and whatever else ends up in there, right? So if you can get through your clutter, clean it out, and get an organized system, that's going to make you more successful in your environment, okay? Think about clear pathways. So especially at your home, your house, where you're at, get rid of the throw rugs. It's kind of an ongoing joke that an OT comes into your house and you have to get rid of your throw rugs. They're a tripping hazard, so we're probably going to say that. But there are ways that you can tape them down if you're really beholden to them. But also the stools and other little decorative items that might be on the floor or in the way, get them out of the way. So think about what is raised on your floor. Where are the door thresholds? Can you get rid of some of the thresholds so that things are flat? Are all of your cables and wiring, are they tucked away? Are they neatly organized? Are they presenting a trip hazard in the house? Think about those things. Labels. Create labels, and labels in categories that make sense to you. My spice rack at home is organized by everyday, hot, and then I think I have like Middle Eastern and then random, right? Those one or two, that one spice you bought for that one dish that you're never going to use again, that's in that random one. But in my everyday is salt, pepper, cumin, what else? Garlic and onion. That's my husband.
I need you.
I'm coming. Right? But I know, so if I'm getting a spice that I use every day, I just grab that small little container and it's out there. I don't have to think about it extra hard, right? It's there. Under the sink, what are your everyday cleaning products? Or what are, I'm thinking dish soap, countertop cleaner, I don't know what else you would grab every day. But those need to be in that container right at the front, right? Because that's probably what you're down there to reach for. You're not down there to reach for the soap for the floor or the stainless steel spray because your appliances are looking grungy, right? Those are used every couple of months. 6 months, other year, your choice, right? But you have them, but put them away. If you don't use it every day, put it away. Put your everyday products right out in front. Get it organized. And put labels on it so that you think oh, this is an everyday product, that's where it's gonna go. Or, oh, this is soap. Okay, soap. And then you go and you look for that soap label, and that's gonna help you put things back where they belong, that processing piece. Has anybody tried anything about home organization and set up the house and make it work for you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Tell me about it.
What are your thoughts?
I got paralysis, so I had to change a lot of stuff in my house, bathroom with bars, get rid of the tap, put a shower, move in the kitchen, the high stuff to the lower,
Yep.
lowers.
There's a lot of eye rolling and shrugging, so I feel like there's
My
some.
bed, I had to have a special, handle bar to move, to help me move.
A rail to get in and out of the bed.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Well, at the beginning, really tough.
Yeah. It's hard having someone enter your home space or send you home with a list and say, oh, you need to make all of these changes. That's hard.
it's defeating.
Yeah, right? It was your house, you know where things go, you know how it should be, and it worked fine up until now, so why do I have to change it? And why is this, 20, 30-year-old something telling me that I have to, move it? But if you take control over what needs to happen, it can create this sense of empowerment. Right? So these are all recommendations, but you're deciding what needs to change and what needs to happen. Let's talk about ways to improving just general visibility. Contrast helps. Anytime you can increase contrast, so having, instead of the brightly colored tablecloth, you know a good example of this? Hotel carpeting is horrible, right? Because it is busy, it's patterned, it is designed to hide dirt and use, right? So the busier it is, the more it hides it. But also, it makes it incredibly hard if you drop something on that carpet to find it, right? There's no clear contrast. It's not like if I drop something on this white table, it's gonna pop out, right? So think about that. Can you add contrast where you need it? So if you're constantly looking at a certain part in your house, in your office, wherever you're at, and you can't find something, can you create more contrast so things stick out clearer? Okay? And always increasing font size, play around with that. With technology, just because you have your phone and it's on the factory settings does not mean it needs to stay that way, right? You can change everything. And make sure you control your lighting at home. And this is really important. Increase light in dark areas. So if that means adding, a night light to a dark hallway, if it means, putting in an extra lamp in a bathroom that might be darker because it only has that one little window, make some of those changes. Shades on the light reduce glare. So try to not keep big open bulbs, but put a lampshade over it, right? It softens it. There is no real change, and someone might correct me, the last I knew there was no real change in the type of light bulb, whether it was an incandescent or an LED or a blue light. Some are going to be more comfortable for you than others. Really the main take-home message there is there are options. Find one that feels good for you. Because I don't know, does anybody get headaches from just visual changes?
Yes.
Yeah. So the type of light can change that. Fluorescent lights typically aren't great, right? And then we all know we don't want blue lights before going to bed because then you're changing your sleep pattern, right? So choose the best light bulb for you. Overhead lighting keeps light even. I think we've all walked into those older, darker rooms where there's one lamp in one corner and another, but then there are these dark spots and there are shadows and it's uneven and you can't see clearly. Whereas an overhead light would distribute light evenly, allowing you to see clearer. And then whenever you can, sit with your back to the window. That reduces glare, right? This is more like when you're going out to eat or at a conference like this, your backs are to the window because then you can see clearly. I'll be blinded all day. That's okay. We'll make do. So then there's always this idea of low tech versus high tech. Do you need to completely revamp your home and get a smart home where it's all voice control and the lights come on and the oven, oven knobs are notoriously difficult to see. Those numbers are teeny and they wear off. So rather than going out and purchasing a whole brand new oven that has the dial or the voice command or anything, sometimes something as simple as nail polish. You take nail polish and put a dot at like the 350 mark and the off mark. That creates just enough contrast that you can see, and it saves you thousands of dollars from buying a new oven, right? So don't always jump to that high technology, it's big, it's fancy, it's going to make life easier. That's not necessarily the case at all. Sometimes it's the low tech that's going to fit your life better. But that's where, reaching out to to talk to your physicians to get an occupational therapy referral, and you can talk through some of these ideas. What do I need that's going to fit me? We have an adaptive technology group which consists of a speech therapist and an occupational therapist here to talk about all of these solutions. How can I modify my computer? How can I modify my workstation? How can I work with voice control? What is out there that I can use? And it's a problem solving and a discussion between the two of you, because there is no one right answer. So local resources, the Mass Association for Blind and Visually Impaired, the Perkins School for the Blind has a lending library out where you can borrow and use these tools ahead of time, play around with it, see if it's something that you're interested in purchasing. And then honestly, if you have more questions or really want to dig into this more, get a referral to occupational therapy. An occupational therapist is going to be able to sit down and talk with you. What do you want to do? What do you need to do? What are you able to do? And how can we make those two things meet? That's really what they're looking at. And then use your NMO network. Right? That's what it's here for. Some of the best ideas come from the neighbor sitting next to you who's tried something that you never even considered. That decision to drive or not to drive is a very hard one. It's a very hard choice to make. You either make it or it's made for you. And my preference is always that you make that decision, right? Knowing that you getting behind the wheel is ensuring the safety for you and the safety for everybody else. And that's how you need to consider it. But it's hard, because then you just can't hop in the car and go to the grocery store, right? It takes a little more planning. Things are a little easier now with Uber and Lyft. It's a little more accessible to get those little trips, but that adds up financially sometimes. If you live here in the Boston area, trains sometimes derail and cause big problems, right? So can't necessarily rely on that all the time. Or casinos go in and really flip all the traffic patterns. But driving is so complex that even if you feel that you're not safe in your home right now because you can't see clearly, you really shouldn't be driving that day. You can do a driving evaluation. You can work with a certified driving specialist that can do training, that can talk you through strategies, that can make modifications, physical modifications in the car, changing the steering wheel, doing hand controls, making sure the car fits for you. You can extend. So sometimes peripheral fields might get lost a little bit. You can get longer rear view mirrors that allow you to see more. You can talk about strategies to get more of your peripheral vision in. So if you're hesitant about driving, I would contact a driving specialist and do an assessment and evaluation and see what you need to do. Okay. And then honestly find a little support group to work with. Reading is another very complex activity, not just because you have to see what you're looking at, but then you have to process those words, which aren't words, it's just symbols that what your brain is reading. Your brain then puts it into a sense of words and meaning, and then you act on it. So increasing font size, using line guides, just taking a bright piece of construction paper and using it to follow the lines down will help organize information. Or you make an L. You make an L like this with a piece of paper, and it creates a border on this side and a border underneath, and you just move it along so that you know where your eyes are going. There are some visual exercises that you can do to work on eye movements. I don't know that that necessarily is going to help, because it's not an ocular motor, it's not the actual eyes moving themselves, it's being able to see everything, right? So finding something in your visual field where you can see the text clearly is what makes it difficult. Anybody else have any suggestions on reading? Thoughts, ideas? Yeah, please.
One of the things that I've started using at work is, because I read a lot of documents, and I know they make them for their intended purpose is for people with dyslexia. It's just different colored, transparent sheets you can put over what you're reading, and that's helped me tremendously.
That is a great point. So I do the cheap version of that, the clear divider tabs, the transparent dividers that are purplish or bluish or greenish in hue. What color do you use?
Yellow's my favorite.
Yellow. Yellow works sometimes, and I think it depends on people. I test it out. Some will feel more comfortable than others will feel comfortable, but it gets back to that contrast. It reduces the glare from the paper. It allows the eyes to just relax. So pick a color that's comfortable for you. So yellow works.
Plastic page size magnifiers.
Yep.
That are a little bit but there's different there.
Yep.
I mean, because if you're reading a book, you can't increase the font size unless you're using magnifier.
Right. And not every book is coming out in large print, and you want to carry around that. It's usually bigger and heavier as well if it's in large print.
I've gone to Audible.
Audible.
Audible is life. I love Audible.
There's nothing wrong with Audible. And libraries now you can rent out ebooks through libraries. Yep.
Do your networks think that Audible is not considered reading?
Nobody's ever said it to
Mine-
me, and I
I'm
don't
in a
care if they
book
do or
club.
not, quite honestly.
I belong
love
to a
it.
book club, and I'm the only one who has, vision problems. And they always rag on me because they're like, Audible's not really reading. I'm like, I think it is. I mean, I have to listen. I have to digest the information.
For me, it helps me comprehend it quicker and easier. Like, I don't have to reread, even if I'm just looking at something online, I'll have to reread it a couple of times before I can really comprehend it. But with the Audible, I can easily tell you back a book in a heartbeat because I can understand it a little bit better because I'm just listening, not have to look at it.
Right.
Plus, you can read while walking.
That's right.
Yeah, you can read while doing anything. Yeah.
Great for
Doing
road
your
trips as
groceries.
well.
Yeah, road trips, anything. But
That's right.
Yep.
Depth perception is a big one. Yes, when you only have the ability to use one eye, you can use some of that depth perception. So I frequently tell people just more cautiously or brace one hand when you reach for something else because that you get input from your hand where you are in space, which gives you more information about how far away something might be. So those are like bigger reaching. And then just slow down a little bit. If you're reaching for a really hot cup of coffee that doesn't have a lid on it, you don't know how far away it is, just take a couple extra beats to reach for it before you just shoot your hand out there and grab it. Well, thank you everyone for spending time with me this morning. If you do have any other questions, you can reach me here at Partners. And I can mostly help facilitate discussions about occupational therapy and some low vision. We can problem through some low vision needs. I do much better with very specific situations. Because like I said, I like to match you to what you need to do.
Let's give it up for Meredith. Yeah.